In 2021, 78-year-old Eleanor McKay received the DNA test results she had been anxiously awaiting, only to encounter the biggest shock of her life. The test results definitively proved that her real mother was Billie Holiday. Everything Eleanor had known for 80 years was a lie. The story her adoptive family had told her wasn't true. She was the secret daughter of jazz history's greatest legend, Lady Day. But the real shock came from a packet of letters Eleanor found in her home that had been hidden for 78 years. In these letters, Billie Holiday explained to her unborn daughter why she had been forced to give her up for adoption. The painful decision made by 28-year-old Billie Holiday in 1943 wasn't just a personal choice but a necessity imposed by the racist America of the 1940s. If you want to learn the complete story of this 80-year family secret and the contents of the hidden letters Eleanor discovered, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because this discovery will prove that Billie Holiday wasn't just an artist, but also a devoted mother. Eleanor McKay was living a quiet life as a retired elementary school teacher in Detroit when she decided to seek answers to questions that had always bothered her in her old age. Her physical features didn't resemble any family member, her voice was different, and her musical talent was a characteristic not found in anyone else in her family. She knew she was adopted, but had no information about her real family. In February 2021, Eleanor ordered a 23andMe DNA test kit. Her goal was to learn about her health predispositions and maybe find distant relatives. In the days leading up to receiving the test results, Eleanor experienced a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She would finally be able to get answers to questions she had wondered about for 78 years. The notification that dropped into her email inbox on March 15th would change Eleanor's life forever. The DNA test results were ready. Eleanor felt her hands trembling as she sat down at her computer and opened the results. The first information she saw took her breath away. The ethnic analysis showed 85% African American, 10% European, and 5% Native American ancestry. This information wasn't surprising because Eleanor already knew she was of mixed ethnic heritage. But the real shock came in the closed DNA matches section. The system showed a list of Eleanor's biological relatives, and at the top was a very close match. This match pointed to someone who could be Eleanor's half-brother. The name was Clarence Holiday Jr. Eleanor didn't recognize this name but clicked on his profile with curiosity. When Eleanor examined Clarence Holiday Jr.'s profile, she encountered surprising information. This person lived in Baltimore, and one name in his family tree caught Eleanor's attention: Billie Holiday. In Clarence's family tree, Billie Holiday was listed as aunt. Eleanor initially thought this was a mistake. How could the famous jazz singer Billie Holiday be her relative? Eleanor immediately began researching online. She learned that Billie Holiday's original last name was Holiday, and that her father was Clarence Holiday. According to the DNA results, Clarence Holiday Jr. was Billie Holiday's half-brother. This indicated that Eleanor had a biological connection to Billie Holiday. With her heart racing, Eleanor called the genetic counseling service offered by the DNA company. Expert geneticist Dr. Sarah Chen examined Eleanor's situation and came to a surprising conclusion. The DNA data strongly supported that Eleanor was Billie Holiday's biological daughter. The relationship with Clarence Holiday Jr. showed genetic similarity rates that would be expected if Eleanor were Billie Holiday's daughter. Dr. Chen told Eleanor that these results were very strong, but additional tests could be done for definitive confirmation. Eleanor was determined to pursue this greatest discovery of her life. She wanted to know for certain whether Billie Holiday was really her mother. Eleanor McKay's life story began to take on new meaning in light of the DNA test results. She had been told she was adopted by the Robert and Margaret McKay family in Detroit in 1943, but no details about her family had been shared. Eleanor's adoptive family had told her that her real parents were a young unmarried couple who had given her up for adoption because they couldn't afford to care for a baby. During childhood, Eleanor had noticed characteristics that set her apart from other family members. Her voice was very strong and melodic. She had a natural talent for music, and she had loved singing from a young age. During her school years, she always came first in music competitions, and her teachers appreciated the natural talent in her voice. The most striking similarity was Eleanor's physical features. As she aged, especially the shape of her eyes and facial features, she began to resemble Billie Holiday's early photographs very much. Eleanor's friends would sometimes tell her about this resemblance, but Eleanor saw it as just a coincidence. After the DNA discovery in 2021, Eleanor began to reevaluate these similarities she had experienced since childhood. Maybe these weren't coincidences, but the result of a real genetic connection. Eleanor decided to review her old documents to gain more information about her adoptive family. Eleanor's adoptive mother, Margaret McKay, had passed away in 2018 at the age of 94. Before Margaret died, she had told Eleanor that there was an old trunk in the basement of the house and that she could open it after her death. Eleanor had thought at the time that this was just old photographs and memories and hadn't felt the need to open the trunk. After the DNA results, Eleanor remembered Margaret's words and went down to the basement. The trunk was really there, dusty and seemingly unopened for many years. When Eleanor opened the trunk, she was shocked by what was inside. The trunk contained documents from Eleanor's infancy, photographs, and most importantly, handwritten letters. Eleanor's finding these letters so long after age 18 showed that Margaret had been determined to keep this secret as long as she was alive. When Eleanor opened the letters, she didn't recognize the writing style, but the content deeply shook her. The first letter came from Eleanor's real mother and began with these sentences: "My dear daughter Eleanor, my heart is breaking as I write this letter. The day I brought you into the world was the happiest day of my life, but it was also the most painful day, because I knew that to keep you safe I would have to stay away from you." The letter was left unsigned, but Eleanor now knew through the DNA results who had written these letters. These were letters that Billie Holiday had written to her daughter. The packet of letters Eleanor found consisted of 8 letters in total. Each was an emotional outpouring written by Billie Holiday at different periods, expressing her love and longing for her daughter. The letters covered a time period from 1943 to 1958, and chronologically showed the development of Lady Day's maternal feelings. The second letter was dated from 1945 and described Billie's maternal fears in more detail. "Dear Eleanor, you've turned 2 and I can't help but wonder how you're growing up. Margaret tells me you're a very beautiful and intelligent girl. This makes me both happy and breaks my heart. I wish I could be there with you, but this world is too cruel for black women, especially for women like me who are on stage, followed by the FBI, and seen as troublesome." The third letter bore the date 1947 and had content where Billie shared developments in her career with her daughter. "You're 4 years old now, and I wish I knew how you would receive my music. My song Strange Fruit has caused great controversy. There are many people who find me dangerous because of this song. FBI agents follow my concerts. This situation shows once again how right the decision was not to keep you with me." The longest and most emotional letter was from 1950. Billie was explaining to her 7-year-old daughter the difficulties of her life and why she couldn't be with her. "Eleanor, you're 7 years old now and maybe you can read these letters. I want to explain to you why I can't be with you. I'm not just a singer, I'm also a woman fighting for change in this country. This fight has been very expensive for me. I've been in prison, constantly received threats, and my life has never been safe. I didn't want to drag you into this chaos." From the information in the letters, Eleanor could understand the difficult period her mother had experienced in 1943. Billie Holiday was 28 years old at that time, and was experiencing the rising period of her career. At the same time, there were major upheavals in her personal life. Her beginning to sing Strange Fruit had attracted the FBI's attention, and she was constantly under surveillance. The sections where Billie described the birth process in her 1944 letter were very emotional. "I will never forget March 15, 1943, the day I gave birth to you. I gave birth to you at the hospital in Detroit, without telling anyone. Only Margaret was there with me. She was the only person I could trust at that time. I was able to hold you in my arms for 3 days. Those 3 days were the most beautiful 3 days of my life, but they were also the most painful." The letter also described how difficult the adoption decision was. "Margaret and Robert are good people. They will be able to give you the security and stability that I cannot give you. You will grow up in Detroit, far away, where the FBI cannot follow. This is the greatest gift I can give you, a safe life." Billie Holiday's decision wasn't just a personal choice. In 1940s America, especially in the southern states, interracial marriages were illegal, and unwed motherhood created a major social stigma. For someone like Billie, who was under FBI surveillance, being a controversial figure, motherhood was seen as risky for both her own and her child's safety. The story of how Eleanor's adoptive mother, Margaret McKay, met Billie Holiday was also included in the letters. Margaret worked as a nurse in Detroit in the 1940s, and had helped Billie Holiday when she became ill during a concert in Detroit in 1942. At that time, Billie was experiencing pregnancy symptoms but wasn't telling anyone. Margaret was the first person to notice Billie's condition and had offered to help her. The trust bond established between the two women played a key role in Billie making her most difficult decision. In a 1948 letter, Billie expressed her gratitude to Margaret as follows: "I don't know what I would have done without Margaret. She not only provided you with a safe home but also helped me cope with this situation. Thanks to the photos and letters she sends every month, I can watch you grow up." This arrangement continued for years, with Billie regularly sending money and keeping track of Eleanor's situation. Margaret had agreed not to tell Eleanor Billie's true identity because both believed this would be better for Eleanor's safety. Margaret's role wasn't limited to being just an adoptive mother. She also served as a secret bridge between Billie and Eleanor. The gifts Billie sent every year were given to Eleanor, saying they came from a distant relative. One of the topics most frequently mentioned in Billie Holiday's letters was FBI surveillance and the potential dangers this posed to Eleanor. It was a real situation experienced in the 1940s and 1950s when the FBI considered Billie a dangerous figure due to the strange fruit song and constantly followed her. In a 1951 letter, Billie expressed these concerns as follows: "Eleanor, FBI agents come to every concert, they track the hotel rooms I stay in, my phones might be tapped. In this environment, keeping you with me would just be selfishness. As long as you're safe, I'm at peace too." The main reason for the FBI surveillance of Billie Holiday was that the strange fruit song was found subversive due to its criticism of racism in America. Billie, who sang this song, was seen as potentially dangerous by federal agents. In reality, the FBI was trying to silence Billie by using her heroin use as an excuse. During this period, the FBI also closely monitored Billie's private life. In the letters, it seemed that Billie mentioned that agents examined her boyfriends, friends, and even her financial situation. In this situation, the discovery of a child's existence could pose great danger for both Billie and the child. After the discovery of the DNA results and letters, Eleanor began to reevaluate her own musical talents. She had had a natural talent for singing since childhood but had never developed it professionally. Now she understood where this talent came from. In Billie Holiday's 1952 letter, there were concerns about Eleanor's musical development. "Margaret wrote to me that you sing solo in the school choir. This news both made me very happy and worried me. Music is the meaning of my life, but it's also the source of all my troubles. Your interest in music might be genetic, but I hope this doesn't bring you the difficulties I've experienced." Eleanor really had shown musical talent since childhood. School music teacher Mrs. Anderson thought that the naturalness in Eleanor's voice was extraordinary and that she should receive professional training. However, Margaret McKay had preferred to keep Eleanor away from a music career. Now Eleanor understood the reason for her adoptive mother's attitude. Margaret had seen firsthand the difficulties Billie Holiday experienced in the music world and didn't want Eleanor to experience the same fate. Therefore, she had directed Eleanor toward teaching, a safer profession. Eleanor's voice really did resemble Billie Holiday's voice from her younger days very much. Especially the richness in low tones and emotional expression power were clear signs of the genetic connection. When Eleanor sang even at age 78, people around her were impressed by the power of her voice. Eleanor decided to contact Clarence Holiday Jr., who had appeared in the DNA matches. Clarence was Billie Holiday's half-brother and might know the secrets experienced in the family. Eleanor sent a message to Clarence through the 23andMe platform and explained the situation. Clarence's response was another shock for Eleanor. Clarence said that the family was aware of Eleanor's existence but had never discussed this matter. Billie's father, Clarence Holiday Sr., had mentioned to a few family members before his death in the 1960s that Billie had a secret daughter, but no one had dared to open this subject. According to Clarence Jr., the Holiday family had continued to protect this secret for 80 years. Eleanor's identity had been kept secret at Billie's own request, and only very close family members had been informed of this situation. Clarence said he wanted to meet Eleanor and that the family would be proud of her. This communication was very meaningful for Eleanor because now she could learn her family's story not just through letters but also through living witnesses. Clarence remembered the rare moments when Billie Holiday talked about Eleanor and was ready to share these memories with Eleanor. The last letter in the packet bore the date 1958 and corresponded to just 1 year before Billie Holiday's death. This letter, unlike the others, carried a more hopeless and melancholic tone. It was clearly evident that Billie wrote this during a period when her health was deteriorating and she felt she was approaching the end of her life. "Dear Eleanor, you're 15 years old now, and maybe you'll be able to read these letters soon. My health is getting worse, and I feel I won't live much longer. In this last letter, I'm writing the most important things I want to tell you. First, that I think of you and love you every day. Second, how much pain staying away from you has caused me. Third, the peace it gives me to know that you're safe and happy. In this letter, Billie also gave advice to Eleanor about the future. If you have talent for music and want to pursue this path, learn from my mistakes. Never let anyone try to silence you, but at the same time don't put yourself in danger. I paid a price for singing Strange Fruit, but this song needed to be sung. You too can stand against injustices, but do it wisely. At the end of the letter, Billie asked Eleanor to forgive her. If you see me as a bad mother, I will understand. But know that every decision I made was for your good. I wish we lived in a different world and I could have raised you by my side. Maybe one day in a more just world, mothers like us won't have to be separated from their children. Learning this truth at age 78 was both a great shock and a great relief for Eleanor. The feeling of difference she had felt throughout her life now had an explanation. She really didn't belong to an ordinary family. She was the daughter of one of America's greatest jazz legends. Initially, Eleanor didn't want to share this information with anyone. The magnitude of the event was overwhelming her. In her small house in Detroit, she was reading Billie Holiday's letters over and over again and trying to hear her mother's voice. While watching old recordings she found on YouTube, she began to notice their physical similarities. The most difficult moment was when she overcame her feelings of anger toward Margaret McKay. Eleanor had initially been angry with her adoptive mother for hiding the truth for 80 years. But as she read the letters, she understood how difficult a situation Margaret had been in, and that she had done her best to protect Eleanor. When Eleanor visited Margaret's grave, she thanked her. "You couldn't give me my real mother, but you gave me the best motherhood. Being Billie Holiday's daughter is something to be proud of, but being Margaret McKay's daughter is the most important part of my identity." This acceptance process gave new meaning to Eleanor's life. She was no longer just a retired teacher, but also living proof of an important part of music history. After Eleanor's story became known, music historians and Billie Holiday experts began to evaluate the importance of this discovery. Dr. Patricia Williams from Columbia University said this finding had started a new era in Billie Holiday research. Eleanor McKay's existence shows how much we don't know about Billie Holiday's personal life. Lady Day was an extraordinary woman, not only with her stage performances but also with the sacrifices in her private life, said Dr. Williams. James Crawford, museum director of the Apollo Theater in Harlem, stated that Eleanor's story made Billie Holiday's memory even more meaningful. Billie Holiday's maternal struggle is a symptom of the difficulties black women experienced in that era. Eleanor's existence exposes the personal dimension of this struggle. Music critic Robert Santelli said this discovery gave a new perspective to Billie Holiday's songs. Now we hear Lady Day's songs like God Bless the Child differently. She really was a mother who sacrificed for her own child. These reactions both made Eleanor proud and worried her. She didn't want to damage her mother's legacy, but she also knew it was important for this story to be told. Eleanor's DNA results were also verified by independent laboratories. Genetics expert Dr. Michael Torres explained that the evidence that Eleanor was Billie Holiday's biological daughter was very strong. Eleanor McKay's DNA profile shows 99.8% compatibility with Billie Holiday's known family members. This is definitive proof that she is Billie Holiday's biological daughter, said Dr. Torres. Additionally, tests from different DNA companies yielded the same results. Ancestry DNA and Family Tree DNA tests confirmed Eleanor's connection to the Holiday family. Especially genetic markers from the Clarence Holiday lineage were clearly visible in Eleanor. This scientific verification ensured that Eleanor's story was taken seriously in the media and academic circles. This was no longer a claim but a scientifically proven fact. After learning the truth, Eleanor began listening to Billie Holiday's music more deeply. Eleanor, who had previously been just a listener of famous songs, was now listening to her own mother's voice. This experience was both emotional and enlightening for her. When she listened to Strange Fruit for the first time from a different perspective, Eleanor cried. She understood how much her mother had paid for this song and how this was connected to the sacrifice she made for Eleanor's safety. While listening to her mother's old recordings, Eleanor understood the pain and strength in her voice differently. The lyrics of God Bless the Child now carried personal meaning for her. This song was the musical expression of her mother's love and sacrifice for her. The moment that affected her most was when she listened to Billie's last concert recordings from 1958. At that time, Billie's voice was tired and sickly, but it still carried that unique emotional depth. Eleanor wondered if her mother had thought of her during that concert. When Eleanor's story began to be reflected in the media in 2022, it created great excitement in the music world. While Jazz Today magazine made it a cover story, a detailed interview was published in the New York Times. Eleanor, at age 79, encountered unexpected fame. In interviews, Eleanor expressed her respect and pride for her mother, while also explaining how difficult the identity confusion she had experienced for 80 years had been. Being Billie Holiday's daughter is a great honor, but learning it at 78 is too late, Eleanor said. Eleanor's story went viral on social media. The Billie Holiday's daughter hashtag became a trending topic on Twitter, while thousands of people sent Eleanor support messages. Especially adopted children and people in identity searches found parts of themselves in Eleanor's story. Some music fans received Eleanor's story with skepticism, but after the DNA results and the authenticity of the letters were proven, these doubts also dissipated. Eleanor remained patient against criticism and stated that she was only telling the truth. In 2023, Eleanor decided to take active steps to continue her mother's legacy. Despite being 80 years old, she decided to dedicate her remaining time to telling Billie Holiday's story. Eleanor first worked with the Billie Holiday Foundation to ensure her mother's life story was told more accurately. She particularly supported research on the motherhood experience and the effects of the social conditions of the 1940s on artists. Eleanor also began working on donating the letters and documents she possessed to museums. The Smithsonian Museum stated that it wanted to include Eleanor's documents in the Billie Holiday collection. The most important decision was Eleanor's beginning to record her own voice. Despite being 80 years old, she decided to record some of her mother's songs. These recordings would be rare examples documenting the musical connection between two generations. Eleanor McKay's story exposes the personal consequences of the social injustices experienced in 1940s America. Billie Holiday's adoption decision wasn't just a personal choice, but a choice forced by systematic racism and social pressure. This story also shows different forms of maternal love. Although Billie Holiday couldn't keep her daughter with her, she found ways to protect her and had secretly followed her for 15 years. Margaret McKay's sacrifice also became an important part of this story, exemplifying one woman's solidarity with another. The truth Eleanor learned at age 78 shows that no age is too late to learn family secrets. This discovery gave Eleanor the opportunity to know not only her mother, but also herself from a different perspective. The most important lesson is that music history still has many stories waiting to be discovered. Eleanor's existence raises the question of what similar secrets other artists might have. Eleanor McKay's DNA test results were not just a personal discovery, but also an event that caused music history to be rewritten. This secret, hidden for 80 years, showed that Billie Holiday was not only a great artist, but also a devoted mother. This story tells the difficulties Black women experienced in 1940s America from a personal perspective, while also addressing universal themes such as love, sacrifice, and protection. Billie Holiday's decision to give her daughter up for adoption is one of the most painful examples of that era's social injustices. Although Eleanor's meeting her mother at age 78 was late, this meeting has added new meaning to both women's lives. Eleanor is no longer just a retired teacher, but a living witness to music history. Billie Holiday is now remembered not only as the owner of Strange Fruit, but also as a devoted woman who mothered under difficult conditions. This 80-year secret perhaps teaches us the most important lesson: love finds its way under all conditions, and true stories are eventually discovered by those who wait patiently. Eleanor McKay's story adds a new dimension to Billie Holiday's legacy, while reminding us that every family may have its own secret stories.